In this video, I'm going to give you my review of the Harley-Davidson Pan America Special. All up, I've had the bike for about 2 weeks and done a wide variety of riding on it, using it as an everyday bike to off-road, motorway riding, and all the stuff in between. If you watched any of my other videos, you'll know I like to do a first impressions video on a bike because that's similar to a test ride experience that you might have when you take a bike out for a test ride. Then after that comes my review and final verdict, which is what this video is. I'm also not going to go over every single nut and bolt because if you're into this bike, you'll have watched a few videos on it already. So this video is more about what I thought was interesting and what I thought you might like to know. It actually took me a while to warm to this bike. Initially, I thought it was too big and it handled slow. Then I got to thinking, who is this bike actually for? After all, it's made by Harley-Davidson, a company known for making fantastic cruisers. So I tried riding it with my cruiser's hat on. I do ride a lot of cruisers for my other channel, which is called the Classic Motorcycle channel, and I find them so rewarding to ride at normal speeds. In fact, they're one of my favorite types of bikes to ride on the road. And then when I started riding this bike like a cruiser, it completely came alive. The takeaway here is simple. If you're already a cruiser rider, this transition will feel natural and instantly rewarding. If you're coming from a different world, you know that slowing down and embracing that big twin character is the secret to making the Pan America shine. Yeah, I didn't actually like the look of it either when I first saw the bike years ago, and now having spent time with it and looking at it, I can say that I actually do like the look of it for what it is. It's very distinctive and it does get a lot of attention from other riders and normal people alike. I really like the LED headlight at the front, and the indicators are lovely and big and bright. I rode this bike with the seat in its highest position. When I was riding along down the road sitting down, I felt like I was reaching to the bars a lot and I was getting pulled toward the tank a bit on the seat. I also felt that the seat was a bit sloped forward and also pushing me toward the tank as well. I actually did try both positions on the seat and the highest one suited me best. I have seen that Harley-Davidson do a high seat for the bike, so I'd probably spec that up on the bike if I was buying it. Just a small thing, when I first rode the bike, I thought the mirror stalks actually looked a bit small and skinny, but now I've used them for a bit, I do like their simplicity. Tank is wide between your legs, but not too wide, and I think it suits the big feel of the bike well. Just carrying on with the comfort and ergonomics theme for a little bit more. When you're standing up off-road, the bike feels even between your legs in kind of a neutral position. As soon as you try to move your weight back or forward, out of that neutral position, the bike goes out and gets fatter at the tank, and when you move your weight back toward the back of the seat, it gets wider too between your legs. So it's really most comfortable just to stay in that neutral position. And in that neutral position, I felt that the riding position was actually a bit hunched too far forward for my style. Standing up for short stints was okay, but if there was a rough bit on the trail and you had to stand up for anything more than a couple of moments, it gets tiring. Now that I've experienced this, I can see other riders in this same position when they're taking the bike off-road. Check out this Harley-Davidson marketing video. See the rider's body position, see how they look sort of hunched forward. If I owned the bike and wanted to take it off-road and stand up, I'd spec it with risers so my body position was up more and back a bit. In fact, if the bars were back a bit, I think I'd be less squashed into the tank. So yeah, definitely need risers and those bars to move back a bit for me. Switch gear and controls all feel really high quality, and levers are adjustable for reach. Handguards are detachable from the handlebars, which I thought was an odd thing. Maybe this is so if you get your hand stuck in them when you fall off, it will quickly detach and you don't sort of snap your arm. I don't know. They're good for road riding, and they probably don't need to be upgraded if you're going to just do mainly road with the odd gravel track. But if you're going to do more serious off-road, you want to change these out for something stronger, like bark busters. The bike's got adaptive suspension, so the suspension will lower on it when the bike's not moving and move up to the normal suspension travel setting when you're on the go. I didn't think I needed this feature because I don't mind a tall bike, but I was glad to have it in a few places off-road where it made things a bit easier because the seat was lower. I really like the Revolution Max 1250 engine, and I've really enjoyed learning about it. On paper, it seems like an amazing thing, capable of so much, but it does take a while to warm to. I think maybe because the exhaust note on it is quiet and the engine has a bit more noise coming out of it. Maybe because of the valve timing or something, I don't know. But how I like to ride it is soft down low when I'm chugging around looking at things. When it really comes alive is in the mid-range and the top end. Once it's on song, it feels unstoppable and it wants to keep you changing into the meat of the power band. The engine just has so much torque in the mid and top end and it just pulls and pulls and pulls. I haven't actually noticed any heat whatsoever with this engine. Radiator's got one big fan and it vents to one side of the engine, and check out this part to direct the heat away from the rider. The radiator definitely needs a radiator guard up the front there, because as soon as a bit of debris goes up there with some force, it's going to pierce a hole in that thing. Also, there's a lot going on above that too, which looks fairly vulnerable. As I said, the exhaust's pretty quiet on this bike, and I wear earplugs when I ride, and I'd say it's got more of a buzz than a deep sound when you're riding along. I suppose there'd be less engine noise if the exhaust was louder, because it'd mask that a bit. Clutch is light, and the gearbox has a satisfying micro clunk on the changes. Clutch is a slipper design, which stops the rear wheel skidding when you're changing down the box, if you get your gear changes wrong or something like that. That design also uses the engine torque to make that clutch lighter. The Pan America is a big bike and it does weigh a lot, and it does feel top heavy to ride. But as I said, this top heavy design is one of the bike's key features, and it's definitely not a negative, and it does give the bike loads of stability in a straight line. I like how this bike comes with these engine bars to protect the frame and engine, and the one-piece cast aluminium swing arm on the bike has a really cool look. The bike's got a main stand and it's easy to get up on it. When I was riding over rough ground off-road, I didn't hear it clanging around like you sometimes can on some bikes, but I don't think I was riding it at my normal off-road pace because I was just trying to preserve the bike too much. Side stand was a bit scary to use at first, because when you put it down, it goes down just at a right angle to the bike and you feel like you want to kick it further. You do get used to it though. Foot on it looks like it's been tack welded on, and you're going to need a bigger foot on that if you want to lean it in the mud. Rear mud guard is designed really well with a splash guard going up there, and also underneath the mud guard there's not much surface area for the mud to stick to. Fuel tank capacity is 21.2 litres, which Harley-Davidson reckon is good for about 240 miles. Turning circle on the bike is great, and I didn't feel like it needed any more. Also, the adaptive suspension is very helpful when you're doing three-point turns on the road or parking, or when you're off-road or on uneven ground, to help you paddle back and forth without losing too much dignity. Suspension on this bike is great, and I really like the Showa semi-active suspension that the bike has been spec'd up with. The two main things I like about it are that it keeps the preload on the bike the same at all times, no matter what the load is, and it constantly adjusts the damping, so it's perfect when you're riding the bike. Oh, active preload only works on the shock, by the way, not the forks, unfortunately. I've ridden a lot of bikes with this system, and overall I think the way the Harley-Davidson have set it up is a bit on the firmer side. My ideal setting for this suspension, no matter what type of riding I was doing, was set to comfort within the menu system. Just on that, you can only adjust the suspension within the two custom rider modes. called A and B. My only gripe with the suspension is that it's not supple enough over those small bumps in the road. Everywhere else it was great. Another thing I really like, which I really noticed on the first ride impression actually, was how the damping kept the forks high in the travel under heavy braking, so the bike would keep its geometry and not dive so much. Very cool feature. I didn't bottom the bike while I had it, and I don't think I ever came close. The bike is fairly low, which is good for the road, but when I took the bike off-road, I found myself saying no to things that I'd usually just ride over on a normal bike if I had more clearance. Mainly I didn't want a rock to hit the front of that bash plate here, which would cause some damage. Just on that, have a look at this skid plate. Got to be one of the biggest I've seen for a while, and it covers pretty much the entire underside of the bike. The wheels on the bike are really nice to look at. Love the Harley-Davidson logo on the sides there. The edge of the rim sticks out a fair way, which also really held me back off-road because I was concerned that I'd hit them with a rock, and that made me slow down. Tyres are Michelin Scorcher Adventures, which are designed by Michelin specifically for the Pan America. They're 80% road and 20% off-road. On-road, I thought they were great, and they really suit the rougher roads I like to ride on here in the UK. I was lucky that it was dry when I took the bike off-road. If it had have been wet, I would have just stuck to the road. I think if these tyres even saw mud, they just clog up and have no grip off-road. Right, so just been out exploring. I've made it to this point. Just think, I'm going to be alright turning around, but I just think it's too rocky and also muddy down in that section to get the bike through that with these standard tyres on. I might give it a go if I had better tyres on there. Sounds like an excuse, but anyway, I'm just going to have to turn around and go back up. I'll film it so you can see me get it out of this situation. It's not that bad. Brakes are excellent on this bike, and they're not grabby, and they have loads of good modulation when you apply them. They're linked, so when you put one on, the other one comes on, but I never really think this feature works as well as if I use the front and back brakes myself, which is how I ride. I did like the brake lever pedal, how you can turn it around depending on if you want it high or low. I mainly run these in one setting though and never really change them, but it's nice if you want to change it quickly instead of getting the spanners out. Yeah, the bike does take a fair bit of input to turn, and it does feel big. If you're coming from cruisers, you'll be familiar with the input needed and you'll enjoy manhandling it around. If you're coming from smaller capacity bikes, you'll need to change the way you think about it because it won't respond as quickly as you want it to. The bike is top heavy and it does take a fair bit of input to turn. My favourite type of road riding on the bike was fairly open, flowy corners where I could use the mid-range torque the bike has and get a flow on. Actually, coming to think of it, that's my favourite type of road riding on any bike on the road. Anyway, when you're riding it like this, it's so enjoyable and you can really lean over with it in the corners and enjoy that big V-twins character. The bike's got a non-adjustable Öhlins steering damper to keep the steering stable at high speeds. I did put the bike on the main stand and lifted the front wheel up a bit and moved the bars quickly to see if it was affecting the steering much. It wasn't, and the damping feels quite subtle actually, and I thought it would be more. I used the screen on the motorway in its highest position and down everywhere else, mainly. I say mainly because maybe you'll catch me out in the onboard footage and make me look like a hypocrite. If I was speccing the bike up, I'd definitely go for a higher screen though, to match the higher seat I mentioned earlier. Cruise control is standard on the bike and it's really easy to use. I took my wife on the back and she really liked it, but I wouldn't want to take her on the back all day because I think she'd be too uncomfortable. And I'd get moved even closer toward the tank than I already feel like I am. And there's also only so much rider to pillion feedback that you can give. She did say it was comfortable though for her, and the seat was soft and she liked the handrails to hang on to. Semi-active suspension is great for riders who take someone on the back or carry a lot of luggage because it ensures the preload is always right for the back end. Just on the luggage, here's what the Harley-Davidson branded stuff looks like. Display on the bike is bright and it looks busy at first, but you can change that to a more simple layout if you prefer. USB socket up the front here, and it's got a cover on it which screws onto it to keep the muck out when you're not using it. So I reckon this bike's for an adventure rider who's after more of an adventure tourer than an off-road bike. Yeah, the bike can do off-road, but if I owned it, I'd be using it for gravel tracks, off-road, if I needed to, and for nothing serious, much like you'd use a brand new Range Rover. If you already ride a Harley-Davidson Cruiser, you'll love this because it's sort of like a cross between that cruiser feel on the road and an adventure bike. If you've come from smaller dirt bikes and lower capacity adventure bikes, you might find it a bit slow and heavy to move around at first, but you do get used to it. All right, so my top 3 pros on this bike are the Revolution Max 1250 engine, Showa semi-active suspension, and the overall style of the bike. And my top 3 cons are build quality here and there feels a bit plasticky, stock riding position has me reaching over the tank too much, and also the standing up riding position. Right, that's it. Thanks for watching.